Welcome to the Vital Path Podcast, where nervous system science meets spiritual growth through honest conversations with men who've done the work. Today on the Vital Path Podcast, my guest is Donovan Owens, and this man is obsessed with self-mastery and lives it. I have witnessed your journey from fitness business owner, inspired to travel across the nation, and then received this proclamation from God that is life is reps. And here we are to discuss this peaceful rebellion and catch up. And as a man who is a father to 4, a grandfather to 5, has a beloved queen in his life, and a dear friend to me, thank you for being on the show.
Man, I'm so happy to be here. I've been doing quite a few podcasts lately, and I can tell you that I'm definitely have been the most excited to get here because I also know your journey to get to this moment. So I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah, grateful, man. I mean, when I first got to connect with you, it was working out. And I was always, okay, this guy's got something behind the muscles and the spirit that I was really curious about. But we really got to drop in Alaska. And that was a special experience you and I shared. We went out to Denali National Park, helped our buddy Chris, quite literally build his ceremonial platform, and had so much fun in the process. When I really got to know you, though, and your commitment to excellence was in the little moments. There were a few moments when we were quite literally putting hammer to nail, building this platform, where I saw your level of excellence rose above the other 12 men there. And even when we were hiking along in Alaska, you encountered an injury at that time. And somebody with the strength and the outward appearance that you have, I noticed the grace in which you were with that, and then still were able to proceed with discernment. And I really appreciated it. It wasn't any big gesture that I saw in you, but it was in these little moments that I got to see the true character that is Donovan Owens.
Man, I appreciate you breaking that up because I forgot all about that injury. There were so many things that we got to do together in Alaska. And, I'll get back to the injury in a second, but one of the moments that really was the most impactful for me was this, you get a group of men together who are building things together and coordinating and kind of leading each other and, feeling different on different days. Inevitably, there's going to be maybe a little bit of conflict or whatever, I would say conflict. And luckily, in the space that we're in, there is a process to be able to deal with that conflict in a way that is valuable for whoever's involved. And I just remember that there was this clearing moment, a charge clearing moment, and it was your turn to participate. And I saw you preparing yourself. And I was like, ooh, okay, Andrew's got a warrior in him. And there was an opportunity for somebody to stand across from you and to feel your warrior. And I immediately knew that I wanted to step up and feel that. And so that moment right there really connected me deeply to you because it was intense. It was intense. We're out there in the wilderness. There's nothing else to do but look each other in the eye. And you had some stuff that you needed to release. And it was a powerful moment. So I appreciate you for that. And then, and there was the injury that happened where, we were set to climb a mountain the next day. And I don't understand really what happened to this day, but one of my knees just started acting up on me. And so I'm laying in this little tent. We had gotten to, I think it was called 3 Lakes. And we had gotten to our campsite. And we were going to have to hike out the next day to go to this mountain. I think I'm remembering this correctly. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, my knee, I can barely walk on it. I'm going to take this backpack and I'm going to hike up a mountain. So that's when I really tapped into what being spirit-led meant for me at that point in my life. All right, I had some milestones earlier on, but it hit again right there. And was able to climb the mountain with you guys, to have that connection with you all, and and then the next day, I remember like we slept that night, we hiked back into camp, slept that night, and the next morning I woke up. It was like 5 a.m. and my leg, it just it knew it. I climbed the mountain and I could barely move. And I remember waking up, everybody's asleep. It's that Alaska kind of dark where it's not really dark. It's like dawn all the time. You can see, but imagine anybody listening to this and just imagine being surrounded by wilderness and having this very low light. And I wake up like, man, I got to get somewhere where I can stretch my leg out a little bit more than I can in this little one person tent. All you guys are asleep. And so I wake up. I was like, all right, I'm going to pack up my tent as quietly as possible so I don't wake anybody up. And I'm going to walk the 2 miles back to the van by myself through the wilderness at like 6:30 in the morning. It was the scariest walk that I've taken in my life to this date.
And why was that?
Bro, I mean, we're out in the wilderness, so we're in bear country. There's moose. There's nobody else on the trail. I never saw another person. And so I had to just tap into something that was like, just take the next step, take the next step, take the next step. And maybe now talking about it, maybe that's the moment reps were born, because like the rep was just one more step. And I finally got to the van, and there was this relief on the other side of challenging myself. So I was excited about it and fearful about it at the same time, and just stepped into the courage to take those steps. So there's a lot of things that happened in Alaska, but those two things are the most memorable.
I remember, hey bear, because yeah, I mean, and if y'all can see Donovan, this is about the specimen I would take against a bear, just about anyone else, and there's still fear there, trust me.
Yes.
So just incredible courage to walk with that. And you touched on a thread here about this was spirit-led, and that's so inspiring to me. And this is for spirit-led men who are, seeking growth against perhaps some of the comforts that are facing modern men right now. What are some of the, if not the biggest problems or resistance most men are facing, right now that you help people support through in life and reps?
The biggest problem that I'm seeing right now is consumption. All the things that are available to us to consume, right? 3 key things: food, information, other people's energy. And I just feel in my own life and through the men that I've coached over the last 20 years, I've seen this just start to compound. And it's gotten to a point where now that consumption of food that really isn't food, information that's just way too much, and other people's energy that we're not equipped to manage in most cases. All of that is leading to what I call a disconnection and a distraction from a man's true self. And I had to experience this in my own life to really understand what it means. And as I'm talking about this, it takes me back to a story I'll share with you where I was married for 14 years. And because of the pressure that I took on from society, the last 7 years of that marriage, I knew I wasn't supposed to be in that relationship. But because of society's rules and the way I was raised and all the feelings that developed around those things, my question was like, all right, am I trying everything I can? Let me just stick it out a little bit longer. I don't want my parents to look down on me. And so for 7 years, stuck it out. And then finally there was this moment where it was this breaking moment where I was like, am I going to really live the rest of my life this way? And so ended up getting a divorce. And that turned into the darkest moment of my life the next 6 months, because I had 2 kids at the time. So now the questions really started to circle in my mind. Am I a good dad? Did I try everything I could try? What is society going to think of me? What are my clients who pay me money going to think of me? Will I lose my business? all the things that I feel would go through any man's mind in a situation like that, right? Because as a man, I want to matter and I want to be significant to the people in my world. So I went through that for about 6 months, and it ended in a moment with me sitting on my bed and contemplating my own life. And I can go into the details if you want me to share the details, but it just that moment, um, it was life changing because I understood like in a millisecond I could have been gone. Everything was prepared. I was ready to go, but God didn't want me to go. The millisecond turned in, instead of me pulling the trigger, what it turned into was this word gratitude floating out of the sky. Right. And I've shared this before where this word gratitude floated out of the sky. And it's this vivid memory of coming down through my brain, landing in my heart, and just sitting there. And then what happened is I have 2 daughters. Their eyes appeared in front of me and they were watching me. So in that moment, I realized life is always going to be much bigger than me sitting here in these thoughts. And if I'm going to continue on, I better figure out how to actually be a man because there's a lot at stake. And there should be as a man. The question becomes, how do you deal with the pressure and the chaos and all the things that can happen so that you can live as smooth as possible, right? As peaceful as possible, as masterful as possible. And so I've turned my life's work into ways to do that because challenges are going to come. But I had to go through my own experience in order to feel it.
And so did I. This brings up the memory of me overlooking a 11-story building, looking down and contemplating my own life. I think each man who's gone through this type of transformation had to hit rock bottom in some way. And I just so love the vivid imagery of gratitude in your daughter's eyes. That was what you had at the time to hold on to. And looking back, what systems or structures could you have magically put into your life to have supported you through that time? You know, I'm thinking about Life is Reps as a community of men. And for me, I've seen this life break men, the pressures of a family, of expectations. And quite frankly, we're talking about suicide, mental health, the whole nine, taking one's life. And I've just found having a community of strong men around me to help that abyss not feel so dark and scary, and they can remind me of who I am. So I guess I'm curious, you know, is how is life as reps informed, has been informed from that time?
There are 2 sets of systems. Let me back up. I'm encouraging men to understand that there can be 2 sets of systems. Society has systems set up. They're waiting for you. And at any moment, you can get swept away, which brings up the importance of a man creating his own systems, which is always available and travels no matter where you go. It's work in the beginning because there's some real things that have to be dealt with, right? There's real traumas that have gone on. There's real attachment to things. There's real relationships that have been broken. There's a sense of adventure that's been lost. There's work we're doing that we don't want to do anymore, but we can see ourselves doing that dream work, which is over there. So we have to learn how to build a bridge. It takes a system to do that. There's our strong self, which has been lost, that we want to come back home to and sometimes don't know how. And so me asking questions around those, I call them the 4 pillars, right? Strong self, real relationships, worthwhile work, amazing adventure. These are the pillars of a man's life. And when I started looking at those, I started making connections like, okay, if we have these pillars, what do we do inside these pillars? There's mindsets we have to have. There are codes that we can live by. And there's the base level of operation, which I call God's law. And for me, that's peace, truth, and love. And so I laid that as a foundation for the way I live and for everything I build at this point, which Life is Reps is the thing. And so peace, truth, and love being the foundation, the next question I ask is, all right, if I have that, then what comes next? Um, I need to have a code that I live by. Oh, if I have a code that I live by, what am I applying that to? I'm applying that to the pillars of my life, the areas of my life that matter the most. And now, if I have those pillars, how do I think about those? That's where the masculine mindsets come from. And then understanding that it's just not this physical being that we're dealing with. There's three levels of living, all right? There's the spiritual level, the mental level, and the physical level. And so what I've laid out there is the entire reps operating system without getting into the details of each one. Um, but that's what life is reps is. And reps stands for repetitive excellence produces success. And you produce that success in the things that matter, which is the system I just outlined.
I love the intention that you've brought to all these different domains. And I've also lived a life without an operating system. So I'm curious, what have you seen happen in your own life or with the men that you coach when they don't have a code that they live by or an operating system like reps?
I'm thinking of a man that's in my community right now. I won't share his name because I didn't get permission for that. But think a lot of people still relate. He's got two twin boys, 5 years old. He's got a queen. He went from living in a suburban neighborhood to moving out to a farm. All right, so uh, the grass isn't always greener, but he's enjoying it. But there's a lot more maintenance there. Plus raising 5-year-old twin boys. And when he was just existing through another day, just making it through another day, he felt chaotic. Back is hurting because he's, sitting down all day, not taking care of himself. Addicted to certain foods, a lot of sugar, which I see a lot. There's usually a vice, lots of scrolling. Found himself overworking. So becoming a workaholic, just chasing down the money. That performance anxiety kicks in, it's real. And so he was going through all of these things. And you would never know it from the outside, having a conversation with him. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. But that's the thing. On the inside, at 2 a.m. in the morning, when you're looking in the mirror and there's nobody else around, this was he was dealing with chaos on the inside. And this is very real for a lot of men. And I experienced it in my own life. And so what I did with him was I led him through, actually, let me back up. Not what I did with him, what he was willing to step into. What he was willing to step into was 3 key things. What is my intentional identity? The man I want to be, who is that? Let me just write that down without any, I'm not going to drag my past along with me. I'm not going to question, well, is that really possible? Just let me unguarded write down the man I choose to be. Intentional identity. What is the vivid vision I have for that man? What is it? What does it look like? Where do I live? How is my family interacting? What adventures am I doing? Like, see it. What is the vivid vision? Then, what are the aligned actions that I'm going to take to slowly pull that vision toward me, to be a magnet for it? Because if I'm not aligned, I'll repel everything in my life that I think should be here. And so that's, him stepping into that process has made a huge difference in his life, right? How light he feels, what he chooses to say yes and no to, his communication with his 5-year-olds, all right? Because there was a lot of frustration before, because if you work all day long and then all of a sudden you got kid energy, those are 2 very different things. You know what I mean? And those kids just need you to be there and be present. And so it's been fun to see his life change because systems that he's been willing to apply to his life.
And as you so beautifully articulated earlier, if we don't create a system for ourselves, there's very easy options that keep us comfortable, fat, lazy, numb, all of the things that are just at an arm's reach now in our society. And so I'd love to hear, because there's so much intention with what you bring to your work. there's a lot of coaches out there or a lot of guides, facilitators, leaders who have these frameworks, but does something different hits when you say it. It feels inspired
Mm.
by something more. So I'd love to hear about your process of refining this operating system in your own life's work and how you bring this to other men.
I hope you're enjoying this conversation. If you've been feeling dysregulated or overwhelmed lately, I want to help. I created a nervous system quiz that gives you a personalized practice that shifts you back to presence, calm, and connection. It's free, takes 5 minutes, and are the exact tools I use myself. Just click the link in the show notes to take it. Now back to the show.
The process of refining came through throwing my hands up and saying, I'm not strong enough to do this on my own. And then really, really tapping into what it is to be a spirit-led man. Because as a human, I can willpower myself through a lot of things. But it's this physical world that I'm dealing with, right? And there's a lot that can happen there, but I'm missing the other pieces. Like, what is the mentality it took for that to happen? Where did that mentality come from? Like, is it the spirit? Like, it's lost. So when I started to really connect the 3 levels of living, that's when I started to receive these divine downloads for all the things, like how to put this together in a way that allows a man to create his own journey within it. And the term that came to me is I want to create my world in such a way that any man who becomes involved with what I'm doing can build whatever he wants inside of it. That's the obligation that, and the direction and the art that I've been handed down. And I don't want to take that for granted. And so it became my responsibility to distill this stuff down in a way that it can be communicated to someone else, to another man, and he can say, oh, you know what? Here's what's valuable to me. I can take this. Yes, I have these 4 pillars in my life, but here's how my pillars look for me. And it should be different than the next man. Because I think a lot of what's going on right now, especially in the personal development world, is here's how to do this. Bro, I mean, really, like there's a million different ways to do one thing. Now, if you think about all the things, that's a combination that it's just hard to unlock, right? So I approach this from a very grounded space of here's the knowledge and the wisdom I have, which is very small compared to what's available. It's based on real life experience. I'll tell you my story as raw as you want it so you can see how I came up with this. Now, you're willing to use whatever you want from it and also iterate. And I actually want to see you iterate. That's what I want to see. So that when you come to me, you can tell me what your reps life operating system is. And that's the power in this.
What does REP stand for?
Reps, repetitive excellence produces success.
Yeah. And what happens when we don't take that action?
Chaos ensues. I've lived that. And, I owned a fitness business for 20 years before I retired. And then I don't call it retired anymore. I call it redirected. I was redirected into something else. So, first of all, the reason reps are so important is because they can only be done in this moment. They require presence. So you can't bring your past along with you. You can't think too far in the future because reps can only be done right here. And so if a man does not slow down, get intentional, and be deliberate about how he's showing up every day, then he will live a chaotic life. And at the point that you're coherent enough and your mental health is there enough and you understand enough, at some point, it all becomes a choice. And I do think that's different it happens at different times for different men. But without it, I talked to somebody the other day and it was like, you're a napkin blowing in the wind. And where does that go? Anywhere the wind blows, right? And I think of that as society. And when people hear me talk about this, I don't want you to think that I'm talking negative about society because there is so much beauty and freedom that we have in society, but it can often feel like it's under a shadow of all the other things that society also offers. And without the reps, a man can get caught up in all the other things that society offers. And he will, because I call it society's secret system of traps. And they are more available than the peace of mind and the deliberate nature of doing things and intentionality. And they take less work. They're very comfortable. So without reps, you live a comfortable life that becomes very uncomfortable at some point and leads to wishing and regret and the shame and guilt that just mounts on top of a man not being everything he knows he can be. And again, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about it from experience of my own life and having lots of conversations like this with other men.
It's our responsibility to create this operating system for ourselves. And here is where I play, because this is spirit led. This is inspired by something greater than us. And it's the delicate art and science of, okay, here's my plan for my life. And then being willing to perhaps retire from a successful fitness career or leave corporate finance to pursue something greater. It's a delicate art and science in, okay, this is my will versus the will of something much beyond. And the question in that is, how do you invite the spirit into life as reps and encourage men to be open to something greater that's moving between us, even in this present moment?
When I say it took a while for me to start saying spirit led, because a lot of men, including myself, equate that to religion. And there's so much divisiveness going on within religion, politics, those big things that people choose to fight over. So let me clear the air right now that this has zero to do with religion. This has 100% to do with that nudge that you have on the inside that says, hey, you should call that guy that your friend you've been thinking about. And then you call him and find out he's got cancer. Hey, you should check on your mom or your dad. Hey, take a left here. Hey, you should get prepared for this. Something's coming. We all have those intuitive nudges inside. That is spirit. And so if you can answer the question, have you ever thought, hey, you should do this? All I invite you to consider is that thought came from somewhere. You didn't make it up. How did it get to you? That's spirit. And so spirit led, what that means is when I get these nudges, I will take action. All right. It takes courage. You have to win against the resistance. I call it going to war. Every day we got to go to war with ourselves as men. Okay. Win against resistance. And that's never going to stop. And so the sooner we get comfortable with playing this game our way, the more freedom we can experience. Otherwise, what happens is without the reps, without the system, without the intentionality, without being deliberate, then we have the chaos that pulls us away from who we can truly be. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's
there is no answer to that question, but you did great. We're playing in the nuance here in such a divinely inspired way. I loved what you said there, and you have this incredible reframe for God. You mind sharing that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So when I was growing up, my mom being a very strong, faithful woman, raised us in the church, in church every Sunday, every Wednesday. It started with my grandma. She carried it on. And now I thank God that she did. When I was growing up, though, I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to go to church today and all these things. And then, sitting through the classes when I'm in daycare, as I get older, sitting through the sermons. And there there were some good moments in there, but mostly I was like, I'd rather be somewhere else. Until I started to gain my own real life experience, right? Figuring out how to raise kids, pay bills, how to deal with this drive and ambition that I had that I didn't know what to do with. Then there was a moment, the dark moment I told you about. And as I decided, oh, let me figure out how to really be a man, I could hear spirit coming through me and feel it. And I decided, let me decide what God means to me. Nobody else can tell me what God is. Let me decide so that I can make it real in my life. And so God, guidance of divine. Simple. For me, that simplifies everything. That's the spirit-led nature of it, right? So when I get this guidance, it's divine guidance, because it's not like I'm sitting down constructing like, oh, here's my next move. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to line everything out. No, these things are just coming to me. And I understand that. And so from the guidance of divine, I get mastery messages. I get divine downloads. I get these things that just really dictate the next steps of my life. Right. When I had the opportunity to come to your podcast, sitting here today, I'd drive 2 hours to get here, and as soon as you invited me, I'm like, yes. You know why? Because I felt it. Got the question, felt the response, immediate yes. All right. I've also had some people ask and the immediate answer was no. Right. So it's divine nature of things is it comes through God.
So beautiful. What I'm curious about is coming from all of the structure in the world that you had in the past to learning how to surrender to this divinely inspired information. Can you share some insight about that transition and how a strong-willed man such as yourself was willing to receive that and then act upon that? Those are entirely different steps.
It's work every day, man. I'm okay with the understanding that I'm incomplete until the day I die. Okay. And now to answer the question, I got tired, man. I got tired of muscling life along. I felt like I was drowning. I just was creating something on my website, and there's an icon that I put up, and it talks about the information overwhelm, and it's an icon of just a hand barely above water. I felt that in my life, and I feel like a lot of men are there right now. Like, just somebody grab my hand, pull me up out of this chaos that I'm in, and just show me 1, 2, or 3 things that I can do to get a little bit further along. What are the reps that I can do? It just, man, life experience is the biggest lesson.
Something that you've shared with me that was so inspiring, to reach out to one man at a time in hopes of inspiring 1,000. Was that divinely inspired, or where did that come from? Because to me, that's the way. It's one at a time, and also holding and knowing the impact, maybe not being able to see it right away, but still taking the reps.
Man, I'm in this flow of courage right now because this all started September 28th, 2025. That's the day I was able to hit the button on my social media accounts and fully delete them. Now, there's a process getting to that, okay? Inner work to say, man, I know people are building a lot of good stuff on these platforms, and there's a lot of people that are available on these platforms, and the potential is very high, and all I have to do is learn how to do ads and all the things, how to get the posting schedule down, get the algorithm to like me. As soon as I can do that, boom, it can hit. I played the Puppet Master's game for 20 years and decided it was time to cut that off because it wasn't working in my life, right? My divine download was, there's a lot of people doing it, but it's not meant for you. It's causing you chaos. So I deleted all social media. And at that point, I just asked God, I was like, show me how I'm going to build the next thing that I want to build without these tools that society has given me. And that's where it came from. I just sat still with that. And then over the next week or two, reach one more man. The deliberate and intentional nature of things. Reach one more man became my daily mission. And so I got a shirt made that says, reach one more man. And I wear that shirt often as a reminder that that man walking down the sidewalk, he may just need somebody to say hi to him, right? That guy I see working out in the gym with his headphones on, he may feel isolated. Reach. Just say, hey, what's up? What's going on? So reach one more man. That's the daily mission. I was like, well, if I keep reaching one more man, where does that lead? What does that turn into? Well, turn one man into 1,000. So that's the vision. All right. The mission is right here. The vision is over there. And just connecting the dots to get there. And the magnetism of that, living in that, has turned into clarity, a way being shown, which is why I'm on your podcast today. I've been on 5 other podcasts in the last 6 weeks. I didn't know that was going to be the way, but I was just willing to be led into this courageous space. And again, still learning every day. Had to tap in every day. Because even though I talk about mastery and masculinity a lot, and they're not achievable. You can't hold these things. There's no trophy for them. They are not a status. They are only an energy that can be tapped into every day. You can connect to it by who you're being. And so I'm choosing to wake up every day, plug in to the things that matter the most, which is my mastery and my masculinity, and go where spirit leads me from there.
Can you tell us a little bit how you plug into that every day? Like walk us through some of the daily routines that you do to allow for that energy to come through you?
The number one thing is what I call a mastery morning. So a mastery morning gets you 3 things before you ever interact with another human. Gets you a spiritual win, a mental win, physical win. You seen how things are being connected here now? Okay. Since those are the 3 worlds that we live in that embody, that focus on everything we do, let's get some small wins right off the bat. And everybody has a morning. Whether you work overnight, you wake up at 6 p.m. and then maybe that's your morning. Everybody has a start to the day. So a mastery morning for me looks like waking up and having what I call an inner bath. I actually got this from Sean Stevenson. A podcast probably like 5 years ago, and he talked about the importance of hydration. And he's like, the first thing you want to do is you want to wake up and have this inner bath. And the inner bath is all about taking in structured water. Structured water for me has 3 things in it. It's got potassium, sodium, magnesium. All right. So I'm all about systems. I found a little supplement I use that has all 3 of those things in there and other minerals. I just scoop it into my water, and that's how I start the day. Okay. And then I get into some movement. As I'm drinking my liter of water, I move my body just to check in, see what's going on. So if somebody were to be looking through my window, they would think, man, that guy, I don't know about that guy. That guy's crazy. But it's
my window too.
Yeah. It's me checking in, like, what's going on? I'm rolling the wrist. I'm doing squats and seeing, like, what do I need today? Okay. And that also informs what I'm going to do later on with some physical activity. And then what I'll do is I'll get into some writing. Okay. My mission is to write 1,000 words a day. I don't always get there, and that's fine. But to start to write. Okay. This is mental and spiritual for me. Once I get some writing done, then I'll go out and I like to take my morning walk or run, usually between 3 and 5 miles. The distance doesn't matter. The act of it does. And so I'll hit that. It gets me out in nature. I get to see what's going on around me, disconnected from tech, those type of things. And then I'll come back. And before I get into my creative day, I'll do what I call intentional quiet time. So people call it meditation. See, I'm very intentional about how I name these things because I want them to to have a low resistance to them. Okay. Meditation is not accessible for a lot of people, like, because they don't quite understand that it's a very simple act. And so intentional quiet time, the way I name it, I just sit down quietly and focus on my breath and set an intention for the man I choose to be that day. I visualize myself dealing with obstacles, responding to things that uh, may have caused a reaction in the past, having conscious communication, which is one of the codes. How do I communicate with people today? So through that, right, my inner bath, my writing, my walk, which sometimes turns into a workout, just depending on how I feel, and then coming back and having intentional quiet time, I've got my 3 wins, and I haven't even talked to anybody yet. Right? I don't know what emails I have. I definitely don't know what's on social media because I don't have that anymore. And I'm not saying anybody else should get rid of that, but the mastery morning is very important. And there, you can go a lot deeper with it. Some people can have mastery mornings that are 2 hours long if your lifestyle allows that. Others may have to have a condensed version, which is 15 minutes, which is fine. But get your 3 wins, fill yourself up before interacting with other people so you can give your best.
Mm-hmm. I love that because at times in my life, I've had the 2-hour window and now it's closer to that 15, but it's still getting in the reps. I'm curious, are you still hitting it at 4:30 in the morning?
So I don't. My alarm goes off at 5 now. And then there are times where I allow myself to just sleep till 7. My lady's alarm will start going off around 6:30. And she loves the snooze button. I don't ever hit the snooze button. I know she'll hit the snooze button and I'm like, all right, well, I'll sleep until 7 today. So I've become a lot more relaxed there because I did 4 a.m. for 20 years, and still early, but it's not rigid.
It's just a testament to your commitment to self-mastery. And at the same time, there's something special that happens in the morning when it's quiet. It's just you and you. And as a man, I've found that to be foundational in how I show up each and every day. And when I don't have that, I see the results. And it's not of integrity. It's not the man I choose to be. So extraordinarily powerful there. Before you went off of social media, there was kind of a phenomenon that you did. I loved watching you in Colorado carrying these boulders up a mountain. It became a thing.
Yeah.
You mind sharing that story with folks and why that and what you learned about that?
My commitment when I went on this journey is, all right, we're going to be driving to all these different places, settling in these different cities for certain amounts of time. I want to do something that is impactful, not only for me, but for one more man. So we ended up in Crested, Butte, Colorado, and we were going to be there for 3 months. We're staying in a condo, right? So the condo is here. There's a mountain right outside the condo, Crested Butte, right outside the window. And so a 30-second walk and I'm on the mountain. We got there in the season when the snow was melting. So there was one day I looked out of the window and I could see this trail starting to appear. And it was basically a straight line up the first part of the mountain, which we'll call it a big hill at this point, right? That first, it's a big hill. And so I said, well, nobody's on there. Like, that's where I want to be. I'm going to start walking that thing in the mornings. So I got out there and I started walking it. And first of all, if you've never been in elevation is challenging on its own. When you start to exercise, it's a whole different level. When you start walking up hills, it amplifies. So I'm walking up this hill. And I'm like, oh man, this is a workout. I like this little challenge. And just a nice steady walk. It's anywhere from 13 to 15 minutes straight up, not straight up, but strong incline. One day coming down, I looked over and I was like, man, there's a lot of rocks out here. And I see this one rock. And for whatever reason, I pick it up and like, yeah, I'm going to carry this rock. So I carry the rock down. That was pretty cool. And I found there's this little flat spot before you get to the very bottom of the hill. So I set the rock there because I knew the next day when I walked, it'd be there waiting for me. So, and it's not at the very bottom. There's like maybe 30 or 40 feet before I get to it. So I could start my walk, get a little warm, be warmed up, get to that little plateau. There's the rock. I pick up the rock and start walking. So that started to become my everyday thing. Then I was like, you know what? One day I'm going to film myself, because I knew that I'm on social media at that time. They had a Facebook group for Crested Butte. I said, I'm going to film myself doing this, and I'm going to call other men out. Say, hey, every day I'm out here carrying this rock. Who's going to carry the rock? Bro, it's amazing what happened. I started getting all these DMs and people messaging me, and they're like, yeah, I want to carry the rock. So the next day, one man meets me out there and he carries the rock. And the goal, not the goal, the code that we lived by was, we're going to carry this rock together at 60 pounds. We're going to be holding this thing for 15 minutes. We can trade back and forth as much as you want, but the rock is not allowed to touch the ground. And when we get to the top of this climb, we're going to do a workout at the top. Okay. And while one person's working, the other person will hold the rock. We just switch back and forth, get the workout done at the top, and then we carry the rock back down, put it on its landing spot. And so other men just started messaging me. They started seeing that other men were doing it, and you know how crowds form. And it just turned into this powerful experience, because what I started doing is interviewing these men on the way up and asking them about their life and, you know, what challenges they were facing, what mastery and masculinity meant to them. And it really opened up this communication style that was not like an interrogation and not like somebody trying to fix you, but a man walking shoulder to shoulder with you, doing something hard, and we're sharing like how we're living in these trenches for real, like real life. And it's just a beautiful experience, man. So by the time I ended up leaving there, I was there for 3 months. There were, I think, 10 or 11 different guys that came out and carried the rock. Several men came out a few times. And then the day before I was leaving, I was like, hey, last time carrying the rock. And then like 4 or 5 of them showed up all at the same time, and we all did it together. And powerful experience. And it taught me that men love to do hard things. They love to challenge themselves, and they love to feel like they matter and they're significant to somebody or something. And these are primal instincts that we need to understand and pay attention to, starting with how we treat ourselves.
What were some of the common struggles these men were sharing while carrying the rock?
Isolation. Feeling like they're the only one who could possibly be thinking the way they're thinking, or gone through things that they've gone through, and nobody to talk to. Maybe dad wasn't home. There's this just feeling of isolation. The first 3 that came out were business owners, successful business owners. They're in the community. And it doesn't matter. Success on paper doesn't matter, right? It'll get you the things that you want to buy. But success on purpose is a very, very different thing. And they just didn't have the success on purpose. And my prayer is that the conversations we had together, it at least just shined a light of possibility, that with the right questions and with the right willingness, with the willingness to do some of the work, success on purpose is available. But yeah, the biggest feeling was just feeling like I'm the only one.
We're all carrying some sort of rock, some sort of burden in our own lives. And it's the same story at the top of the business ladder, at the bottom of the local corner store. Every man's got that same story. What do you believe is the difference between success on paper and success on purpose?
Success on paper is when you can perform really well at whatever it is that you're doing, whether you like it or not. I found a lot of men just don't like it, but they perform their asses off. And they're able to achieve buying things, right? Showing things. Got this car, got this house, going on these vacations, all right? There's that. And I do think there's a piece of that that's fine. But when it's isolated and siloed, that becomes success on paper. Success on purpose, you have the ability to buy things and hopefully whatever you want. You also have this inner peace and this intentional way of living, this ability to slow down, this ability to connect with people, to be present, show up with power, to be grounded, to have an ergonomic ego, to purposely prepare for things. That's a very different life because the performance side, there's never enough. Never. That's my guarantee to you. Okay. On the purpose side, you can look at things and be like, man, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. Like, I'm so grateful for where I am in life right now. Yep, my target is still over there a little bit. But look at this. Look what I've been able to do. Look at the people that are around me. Look at this energy I get to live in with mastery and masculinity as the foundation of who I'm showing up as. It's just those are the differences. Success on paper turns out to be a very materialistic life that's unfulfilling. Success on purpose is full of freedom and fulfillment.
If you could pass down one lesson in your 50 years of life to any man listening, what would it be?
Be true to yourself in every way. That means knowing when to say no, being willing to have tough conversations, passing up opportunities that look valuable, but because of the depth that you operate at, you can see they're not. Setting bold boundaries, which is one of the 9 masculine mindsets. Those bold boundaries matter. Come back home to who you truly are. That's how the world wants to receive you, right? And when I say the world, I mean your world, which could be a small circle. And that's the only circle that matters. That's it. Yeah, truth, man.
And I always love to ask at the end of my podcast, just what is a vision that you're holding in your own life that you may not get to see come to realization in this lifetime, but is something that is spirit-led or on your heart?
That every man can embody and feel what true freedom is. Freedom gets talked about a lot. It's a buzzword. Like, I want to be free. And a lot of people tie that to the performance side of things, right? I'm free. I can buy money. I can buy things and go anywhere I want to. That's fine. True freedom can only be had when the internal self is dealt with. So being willing to do that work, and that looks different for everybody. There's a lot of pressure out there on doing that work also, like what that has to look like. And, you got to go take a trip to Peru in the jungle to do ayahuasca and all these. Like, there's lots of different ways. And so a man figuring out what works for him, what his lifestyle operating system looks like, and what he's committed to is the way to experience true freedom. And that's the world I want to see, is where like all of us men can be walking around and we can just look like, that's a free man right there. That's a free man right there. That's my guy.
What a world that would be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want that. I want that for my world. I know for the world, it's a big ask. I'm going to keep asking. But in the meantime, I'm going to influence that in my world.
Mm-hmm. That's where it starts. Donovan, if folks want to stay connected with you, where's the best place to find you?
The best place is lifeisreps.com. That is the Peaceful Rebellion. It's a revival of the energy of mastery and masculinity. Over there, I'm talking about the mind, the muscle, the money, the mastery, the masculinity. Though, and if those things interest you and you are a man, then check us out at lifeisreps.com. I have nothing for sale at this moment. I have things that I'm sharing through the newsletter. And so getting on the newsletter will keep you connected with some of these deeper conversations.
Well, thank you for keeping the fire alive out here serving men. This has been a gift to me and everyone listening. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And this is the Vital Path Podcast. In the meantime, God bless you and go live your life.
Thank you for tuning in to the Vital Path Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, share the love with someone who comes to mind. It's free, they'll appreciate it, and together we'll keep this community growing. Until next time, God bless you and go live your life.